But there's something about this whole process that doesn't quite add up. If painkillers are flooding your entire body, why do you only feel relief in the places that actually hurt? Pain's secret identity crisis. The answer lies in understanding what pain actually is and where it really happens. You stub your toe and feel pain in your toe, right? Not exactly. Pain signals originate in injured tissue, but the conscious experience is created in brain circuits about 3 feet away from where you think it's happening. Your toe sends the distress signal, but your brain writes the pain story. This completely flips everything we think we know about pain on its head. When you touch a hot stove, the burning sensation feels like it's happening right there on your fingertip.
But that's just your brain's incredibly sophisticated
interpretation system. The actual experience of burning is being constructed entirely within your cranium by electrical signals and chemical reactions that translate tissue damage into conscious suffering. The 2025 neuroscience research has confirmed what sounds like science fiction. Brain imaging studies using advanced fMRI technology can now watch pain being manufactured in real time inside people's heads. They can see the exact moment when electrical signals from an injury get interpreted into the conscious experience of hurt. The brain regions that light up during pain processing are completely separate from the body part that's actually damaged. Scientists can literally watch your brain interpret incoming signals as pain. When researchers showed people virtual nature scenes while they were experiencing controlled pain stimuli, the brain scans revealed something incredible. The brain's interpretation of those pain signals was significantly reduced just by looking at pretty pictures. The injury was exactly the same, but the brain decided to process the incoming information differently. The pain processing pathway starts with specialized nerve cells called nociceptors that detect tissue damage and send electrical signals through your spinal cord to your brain. Your brain then constructs the pain experience using multiple regions, including the thalamus, somatosensory cortex for location and intensity, and emotional centers that make the experience unpleasant and motivating. But if you want to see just how much pain depends on brain interpretation, look at phantom limb pain. People who have had arms or legs amputated often continue to feel excruciating pain in body parts that literally don't exist anymore. The limb is gone, completely absent, but the brain keeps generating pain sensations and projecting them onto empty space. This shows the brain can generate pain without any actual injury present. Think about what this means. A person can have absolutely nothing wrong with their body, no tissue damage, no inflammation, no injury of any kind, and still experience pain so severe it interferes with their daily life. The pain is completely real from their perspective, but it's being generated entirely by brain circuits that are essentially creating the experience from memory patterns. Your brain constructs the experience of pain from electrical signals the same way it constructs the experience of vision from light waves, or the experience of hearing from sound waves. Pain isn't something that gets transmitted from your body to your brain like a package being delivered. It's something that gets created by your brain using information from your body. The difference is huge. The 2025 understanding of pain processing shows just how complex this construction process really is. When you get injured, the electrical signals travel through multiple relay stations and get distributed to different brain regions that each contribute specific aspects to the final pain experience. The somatosensory cortex handles location and intensity information. The anterior cingulate cortex adds the emotional component, making the pain feel unpleasant and motivating you to do something about it. The insular cortex integrates everything into a unified conscious experience. But here's where evolution shows its twisted logic. Why would natural selection design a system where pain gets processed in your head instead of at the actual injury site? It seems incredibly inefficient to have all pain signals travel all the way to your brain just to get interpreted and then have response signals travel all the way back to coordinate a reaction. The answer is that centralized pain processing gives your brain incredible power to modify and control the pain experience based on context. If pain happened locally at injury sites, it would be the same intensity every time regardless of the situation. But centralized processing allows your brain to turn pain up or down depending on what's happening around you. Soldiers in combat often don't feel injuries until after the fighting stops because their brains are suppressing pain signal interpretation to keep them functional. Your brain can also amplify pain when it decides that's necessary. The 2025 data on chronic pain conditions shows that about 50 million adults in the United States experience chronic pain, and most of these conditions involve the brain amplifying pain signals far beyond what's actually happening in the tissues. Conditions like fibromyalgia produce widespread pain, even though there's no detectable tissue damage anywhere in the body. The brain regions that process pain also connect directly to memory centers, which is why painful experiences get remembered so vividly. But this also means that remembering pain can actually recreate aspects of a pain experience. People with chronic pain often develop something called central sensitization, where their pain processing circuits become hyperactive and start generating pain responses to normal, non-painful stimuli. Recent discoveries about pain processing show that the brain doesn't just passively receive pain signals, it actively participates in creating them. Brain regions like the periaqueductal gray send signals back down to the spinal cord that can either enhance or suppress incoming pain signals before they even reach conscious awareness. Your brain is constantly adjusting the volume knob on pain interpretation. The genetic research from 2025 has identified specific genes that control pain sensitivity by affecting how these brain circuits function. Mutations in genes like SCN9A can make people completely unable to feel pain, or can make normal touch feel like burning agony. The same genetic variation that makes one person barely notice a paper cut can make another person experience that same paper cut as excruciating torture. This brain-based interpretation system is exactly what makes painkillers possible in the first place. If pain really happened at injury sites, you'd need to deliver painkillers directly to each injured tissue. But since pain actually gets constructed in your brain, you can interrupt the entire pain experience by getting painkillers to the right brain circuits. Your brain is essentially interpreting electrical signals and turning them into the conscious experience of pain. But here's what's really interesting. If your brain is constructing pain from incoming signals, what exactly are those signals trying to tell your brain in the first place? There's a whole molecular drama happening at injury sites that's specifically designed to get your brain's attention. The molecular troublemakers behind all this pain drama are cyclooxygenase enzymes, or COX for short. These are the real villains in our pain story, and they're lurking in virtually every tissue in your body just waiting for something to go wrong. When cells get injured or stressed out, COX enzymes basically lose their minds and start a chemical chain reaction that amplifies your pain signals way beyond what's actually necessary. Think of COX enzymes as molecular drama queens. They take a small injury and turn it into a full-scale emergency response that involves your entire nervous system. These enzymes are sitting quietly in your tissues most of the time, but the moment they detect any kind of cellular distress, they spring into action and start manufacturing chemicals that make everything hurt more than it should. The research has identified different COX enzyme variants, and each one has its own personality and function. COX-1 enzymes are the responsible ones that handle normal housekeeping duties like protecting your stomach lining and regulating blood clotting. COX-2 enzymes are the troublemakers that get activated during injury and inflammation. There's also COX-3, which was only discovered recently and seems to be involved specifically in fever and central nervous system pain processing. But the real star of this molecular soap opera is something called arachidonic acid. This is a chemical that COX enzymes have an absolute obsessive relationship with. When your cells get damaged, they release arachidonic acid from their cell membranes, and COX enzymes go completely crazy for this stuff. They bind to arachidonic acid molecules and start converting them into entirely new chemicals through a process that's basically molecular manufacturing. COX enzymes don't just casually interact with arachidonic acid, they devour it. They grab onto arachidonic acid molecules and run them through a two-step chemical conversion process. First, they turn arachidonic acid into something called prostaglandin G2, then immediately convert that into prostaglandin H2. This whole process takes less than a second, but it sets off an inflammatory cascade that can last for hours or even days. Prostaglandin H2 is like the raw material that gets turned into all the different chemicals that cause pain, inflammation, and fever. Your body has specialized enzymes that convert prostaglandin H2 into prostaglandin E2, prostaglandin D2, prostaglandin F2 alpha, thromboxane A2, and prostacyclin. Each of these chemicals has its own specific job in the pain and inflammation response, but they all trace back to COX enzymes going berserk with arachidonic acid. COX-2 amplifies pain chemicals rapidly, making it a key target for NSAIDs. These prostaglandins are the chemicals that actually make pain signals stronger. Prostaglandin E2 binds to nerve receptors and makes them more sensitive to painful stimuli. It's like turning up the volume on your pain detection system. Normally, a light touch might not register as painful at all, but when prostaglandin E2 is floating around, that same light touch can feel like agony. But here's the part that seems completely backwards from an evolutionary perspective. Why would our bodies evolve a system that amplifies pain and makes injuries hurt more than they need to? Pain is supposed to be a warning system that tells us to avoid dangerous situations. But COX enzymes take that warning system and turn it into a torture device that can make minor injuries feel excruciating. The answer is that pain amplification actually serves several important biological functions. Increased pain sensitivity makes you more likely to protect injured areas and avoid further damage. The inflammatory response that COX enzymes trigger also brings immune cells and healing factors to injury sites more rapidly. Prostaglandins don't just cause pain, they also cause blood vessels to dilate and become more permeable, which allows your body's repair mechanisms to access damaged tissues more effectively. Statistics on inflammation-related conditions show just how common COX enzyme overactivity really is. About 54 million adults in the United States have doctor-diagnosed arthritis, and almost all of these cases involve excessive COX-2 enzyme activity in joint tissues. Chronic pain conditions affect over 50 million Americans, and many of these involve COX enzymes that have become chronically activated and keep producing prostaglandins even when there's no ongoing tissue damage. Understanding COX enzymes led to one of the biggest breakthroughs in painkiller development. Once researchers figured out that COX enzymes were the molecular switches that control pain and inflammation, they realized they could develop drugs that specifically block these enzymes. This was revolutionary because earlier painkillers worked through much less precise mechanisms and caused way more side effects. The discovery that there were different types of COX enzymes with different functions opened up even more possibilities. If COX-1 enzymes protected your stomach and COX-2 enzymes caused pain, then theoretically you could develop painkillers that only block COX-2 while leaving COX-1 alone. This would give you pain relief without the stomach problems that came with traditional painkillers. But COX enzymes turned out to be more complicated than anyone initially realized. COX-1 and COX-2 don't operate completely independently, and blocking one type affects the other in ways that aren't always predictable. The relationship between different COX enzyme types involves complex feedback loops and regulatory mechanisms that we're still trying to understand. What we've learned is that COX enzymes aren't actually villains trying to make your life miserable. They're more like overzealous security guards who sometimes call in way too much backup for relatively minor incidents. They evolved to protect you from serious threats, but they don't always have good judgment about when a full-scale emergency response is actually necessary. This is where NSAIDs come in to save the day. NSAIDs inhibit COX enzymes in injured tissues to prevent prostaglandin production, reducing pain signals. They block this chain early, preventing the cascade of pain-amplifying chemicals from ever getting started. But here's where the story takes an even stranger turn. Your tissues aren't the only place where pain gets amplified. There's another player in this game that's been quietly making everything worse. The brain's pain amplification system. That player is your brain itself, which has developed its own sophisticated system for making pain worse than it needs to be. Not only does your brain create the experience of pain, but it also actively amplifies that pain on purpose. Your brain receives pain signals from injured tissues and then deliberately cranks up the intensity, turning what should be manageable discomfort into something that can completely dominate your consciousness. It's like your own neural networks are conspiring against you, taking a bad situation and making it exponentially worse. This isn't some kind of malfunction or design flaw. Your brain is intentionally turning up the volume on pain signals through a process called central sensitization. When pain signals arrive at your spinal cord and brain, specialized circuits don't just passively relay that information. They actively process it, modify it, and often amplify it before creating your conscious pain experience. Your brain is essentially taking incoming pain data and running it through an amplification system that can make moderate pain feel excruciating. When pain signals persist, brain circuits become hypersensitive, amplifying pain beyond the original injury. The 2025 research on central sensitization shows that this amplification happens through increased excitability of neurons in your central nervous system. When pain signals keep arriving from injured tissues, the neurons that process these signals become hyperactive. They start responding more strongly to the same level of input, and they begin responding to signals that normally wouldn't register as painful at all. It's like turning up the gain on an audio amplifier until even whispers become deafeningly loud. But the real troublemakers in this amplification system are cells called astrocytes. These aren't even neurons, they're support cells that are supposed to help brain cells function properly. But when astrocytes detect ongoing pain signals, they completely change their behavior and start actively participating in making pain worse. Research on glial cell activation shows that these support cells intensify pain signals, driving chronic pain conditions far beyond what the original injury would justify. Astrocytes essentially create an echo chamber effect in your brain. When they get activated by pain signals, they release inflammatory chemicals that make surrounding neurons more sensitive. These hyperactive neurons then send stronger signals, which activate even more astrocytes, which release even more inflammatory chemicals. The whole system feeds back on itself, creating a cycle where pain signals get amplified over and over again. Other support cells called microglia also join this amplification party. When they detect nerve injury, microglia release chemicals that further increase neuronal excitability and strengthen the sensitized state of pain-processing neurons. It's like having multiple different cell types all working together to make sure your pain experience is as intense and long-lasting as possible. The neuroplasticity involved in this process is remarkable, but also terrifying. Persistent pain rewires brain circuits, making pain harder to turn off. Your brain physically reorganizes itself in response to ongoing pain signals, creating new neural connections that reinforce and maintain the amplified pain state. These structural changes can persist long after the original injury has healed, which is why some people develop chronic pain conditions that last for months or years after their tissues have fully recovered. This amplification system affects multiple brain regions simultaneously. The areas that process different aspects of pain all show alterations in people with chronic pain. The region that handles the emotional aspects of pain often becomes hyperactive in chronic pain patients. Meanwhile, the connections between different pain processing regions become disrupted, impairing the brain's ability to regulate and control pain responses. From an evolutionary perspective, this amplification system seems completely counterproductive. Why would natural selection favor a system that makes injuries hurt more than necessary? The answer is that pain amplification serves important survival functions when it works correctly. Amplified pain makes you more likely to protect injured areas and avoid activities that could cause further damage. It also motivates you to seek help and rest, giving your body time to heal properly. The problem is that this amplification system sometimes gets stuck in the on position. The same mechanisms that are supposed to protect you during acute injuries can become chronically active, creating persistent pain even when